Now, I have racked my brain for many a month pondering one question. If Rodrigo Duterte was so shamelessly brazen as to broadcast his murderous intent in public ever since he was the mayor of Davao, why did it take the ICC prosecution almost 4 years to open an investigation after Rodrigo Duterte pulled his country out of the International Criminal Court? After all, why did the ICC prosecution not just save itself all the hassle of its jurisdictional problem, a fundamental issue that still plagues it and remains to be resolved by the appeals chamber? We won't talk about that today, obviously. But why did the prosecution not seek to initiate its official investigation within the 1-year withdrawal period, especially given the fact that Mr. Karim Khan, the victim's representative embedded in the role of chief prosecutor, had received judicial authorization to interview at least one of the criminal cooperating witnesses substantiating the crimes of the Davao mayoral period? Well, for me at any rate, it didn't take too long for the penny to drop. As I mentioned in my opening statement, the prosecution knows that it is not enough simply to assert that Rodrigo Duterte said outrageous things and that deaths occurred, and so, as a result, he must be criminally responsible. There is a requirement for what is called a causal nexus. The prosecution has to show which one of Duterte's statements, orders, or commands were given to a specific individual who then went out and pulled the trigger or communicated the command to someone else who also went out and pulled the trigger, killing one of its 78 identified victims. That would have been the classical way to prove a causal link between stuff that came out of Rodrigo Duterte's mouth and the deaths pertinent to the case. That would have been ordering under Article 25(3)(b). But the prosecution cannot show such a causal link. They've never been able to do that. They show you a lovely pyramid. It's on the screen, with Duterte at the top, the co-perpetrators underneath, the DDS handlers underneath them, and the hitmen perpetrators at the very bottom. To quote Mr. Julian Nichols, how cute. But what the learned prosecutors can't show you is the connecting line between Duterte at the top and the next level down, comprising the so-called co-perpetrators. I hope Ms. Croft will forgive me for vandalizing her screenshot, but there you have it. That is where the apex slips off the pyramid of Giza. The most they can do is allege that their cooperating witnesses who pulled the trigger and whose credibility is about as worthless as a devalued peso understood that killing is what Duterte would have wanted, or that they had no choice but to comply because that was what was expected of them by their handlers, or other such similar expressions of a totally subjective sense of obligation. But as they know, not one of the 49 incidents mentioned in the document containing the charges manifests such a causal link between a speech, an order, and one of the charged incidents. I will state it for the record. In fact, I will state it a number of times during my submissions. There is no smoking gun in this case. And that is not for want of a desperate attempt to find one on the part of the prosecution, with all their leading questions when they interviewed their criminal cooperating witnesses. Not one witness relevant to any of the 49 incidents with which Mr. Rodrigo Duterte is charged will testify that he received a direct order